Hey YouTubers out there, this is Wertak. I just wanted to show a couple of larger bifaces I've been working on. Wanted to start off with what I would consider a failure. This is a piece of fairly dark obsidian, and if you can see, well, let's see, it's pretty clear. It's got some flow lines in it. It's very interesting material, and yet I wasn't able to clear it, and I'm beginning to hinge into this cut mark, and so it's just not going to happen. So that's one side, and here's the other side. Now, I do have an example, a successful example, and so I will just kind of basically quickly point out what was the difference. And just as simple as this was a 1/2 inch thick piece, and I just wanted to see if I could do it, and the short answer is I couldn't. This piece here was a full inch in thickness, and so I was able to clear all the cut marks out, get rid of all the islands, you know, and get it to the point where it's like, okay, now I can actually shape it and see what I can make out of it. But it kind of demonstrates just the limitations of the approach or the technique. But there's hinges here. It might be a little hard to see, but it's hinged out here. When you're trying to do these larger bifaces, typically the aim is to try to create some ridge lines that you can follow, and so you tend to work the ends first. So you pick, you just work the ends here, and then you'll naturally develop some ridge lines that you can follow. Well, the problem is when it's as thin as a 1/2 inch, at least in my case, it's really, really difficult to impart enough energy into the piece to get that flake to travel. Now, there's a couple different approaches when it comes to how you swing the billet and the shape of the billet that help me out. Now, there is, it just should be pointed out that there is no right way. There is your way of succeeding, and oftentimes it really comes down to your physicality. Are you physically able to do something, or just what you feel comfortable with? If you feel nervous about striking a piece, then percussion may not be really for you. So it just depends. So I just wanted to point this out because it shows that it's like, it's not, there are failures, and it happens. And so like this, it's like, well, what do I do with it now? I could certainly snap it in half and then work these ends here and get rid of all these cut marks. I certainly could do that. I could thin up the piece a little bit more and see if I could develop a better platform to knock it out. I just don't know at this point. So I'm just thinking about it, putting it off to the side. Now this piece here, a lot of it's pretty clutch. It's kind of like, well, what can you do? Now I want to show this flake right here. You can see it's the light reflecting off of it. It goes more than halfway. Actually, there's two pieces. This one goes actually much deeper. This was the last couple of hits to get rid of, essentially an island or the cut marks. And like I say, it's really clutch. I don't like filming it because, quite frankly, I have to focus, and if I'm talking about it on video, I'm not putting the focus that I need into actually succeeding. And so that's why I tend not to actually do videos of me percussioning. Unless it's a material that I've got a lot of, and I don't really mind it. But if you look at this, you can see, let's see if I get the light right, it's sort of beginning to, it's really dark. Let's see if I can bring some over to the better light source. Okay, so for this flake, you can see it's hinging out over here, but that's okay because I can always hit it from the other side. The problem I face with this piece is that it has different areas, different colors, hence slightly different densities, and so it can be really tricky to apply enough force properly. The darker regions is just basically cleaner sections of obsidian, and it was much easier to hit from this side than it was on the colored banded side. And so you can see that I've cleared it, but I still have some work to do in order to clean up some of the hinging areas, and I don't really foresee me having any problems doing it. But at this stage, it seems appropriate to show it. You can see the same sort of story. There's some banding in here during, for the clear spots here, and it actually has kind of a purple color to it. But the difference was this was 1 inch thick, and with that extra inch, you can actually solve some problems or fix some errors. And it always seems like it's a struggle with the mistakes that you make. But I did the same thing. I worked each end first, and then work towards the middle. And this is not an idea that I came up on my own. It's essentially watching all the other videos out there that discuss how to percussion larger bifaces. And so, you know, the names are, well, they should be known by most people who flint knap. Jim Wynn, Marty Reuter, Paleo Man 52. There's a whole bunch of guys who do percussion that really have a lot of good ideas, and so most of the ideas actually come from those guys, and I'm just trying to implement it in my own way. Now, I want to show, this is the bopper that I use, and it's a heavier billet. Basically, the diameter is about an inch, and there's about a total inch worth of solid copper. I prefer solid copper because I work a lot of flint, and when you use the lead-filled copper boppers, they tend, for me at any rate, wear out much faster. They don't really wear that fast on obsidian, but I do enough work with cherts and flints that I inevitably poke a hole in them within a couple of weeks, and so this has lasted me so much longer, and it's better. And actually, if you look really carefully, you can see that it's sort of flared out. That's just from all the work that I've done. It's kind of bowing out on the end here. But the way this was put together was that it was swaged. The solid copper was cooled in a freezer. The copper pipe here, it's standard copper pipe, was heated up and then put together. There are some mechanical punches into it, but for the most part, it's really just a simple mechanical hold. And then you have the wood that was put on here, and I can't remember if this was pear or what. A buddy of mine actually turned the handle for me. And the fact of the matter is, we put this back on his wood lathe, and we took off about a 1/4 inch because it was part of the development of the tool. The handle was too long and my wrist was hurting. Now that I've shortened the handle a little bit, I have no problems. And that's one of the advantages of copper and copper tools. You know, you want to feel good at the end of the day. You don't want to hurt yourself. I know that when I use hammerstones, you know, my wrists start to hurt or my elbow, and it's probably just strictly my technique. I need to work on it. But you know, you've got guys like Marty Reuter who really know their hammerstone techniques very, very well, and those guys are certainly worth emulating and trying to do some of the things they do. But you know, that's born out of 15 plus years of experience when these guys work it. And the experts, you know, the way to become an expert is to obsess over it and do it a lot. I think there's a book, let's see, Outliers, that discuss this. I think it's like 10,000 hours worth of practice. And I think that works out to about 40 hours a week for 5 years. If you do it that much, you're an expert. And it really takes a certain measure of obsession. And it's kind of funny because when I hear people talk about it, you really work hard. Well, you know, it's not like that. If you obsess over anything enough, it just is fun. It's not like it feels like work. And so after, you know, at the end of the day when I come home, this is the sort of thing that I enjoy doing. It's a good stress reliever, and it kind of expresses my artistic talent. But anyway, so that's really what I do. So when it comes to these larger pieces, and I want to show just exactly what the size is. This is approximately 10.5 inches long, and it's at the widest point, it's about 5 inches. And I don't know if I can really show this properly, but it's about 5 inches wide. And so that's sort of the limit of my piece, the larger bifaces that I do. For me, it has to be about 1 inch thick, or I can't clear it that far. You know, but in theory, if you look at the bigger flake scars here, it's like I go more than halfway across, and so I certainly could potentially do a bigger piece, but I think really what I need to make it work is, one, a piece of obsidian, for example, and it has to be obsidian for me right now because it's the softer rock that I can actually make these larger pieces from. It needs to be the banding, the flow lines. The obsidian itself has to be fairly uniform and boring in terms of its physical structure in order for the flakes to travel farther. Once you go into different banding, it tends to not work as well. And like I said, this darker, arguably pure silica source, this side, the flakes travel better than this side. And it's just something that you work out once you use enough of these materials to get a feel for just what the material can handle. But with it being about an inch thick, and when you set up and isolate those platforms, what I do is this bopper, and it's really kind of hard to, without a tripod, to actually show, but when you hit it, there's a lot of in-force. And so, you know, the swing as you drag it, and this flat billet actually helps because, you know, you can grab it and it's got a little bit more, you know, friction on the surface in order to pull. And, you know, the weight of it, the length of it, this is a little bit shy of 5 inches long. It's heavier. You can provide enough force. And when I hit it and I get these big flakes off, the attitude is I'm going to snap it. I'm going to put enough force into this thing to snap it. And it's almost angry. It's almost an angry strike. But that's what you have to do in order to get these bigger flakes off. And it's understanding just how far you can take it without snapping in half. And you know, if you set up the platform fairly close to the surface of the side that you're going to remove the flake from, you make it really stout. And when you swing it, the swing is with a lot of in-force. And, of course, proper support on this thing. You know, when I'm holding this, sometimes, you know, I've said in the past, holding it with my, you know, with my leg is kind of annoying. But, I mean, I literally support it like this. You know, and put my pinky just off to the side of where I'm going to hit it. And these fingers in the back are the back pressure. And when I swing it, it's you know, it's really forceful. But if it's thick enough, it can handle it. And if there's a sufficient amount of in-force, it doesn't actually snap it in half. And it works. But where did I get these ideas? Paleo Man Jim, basically. You know, it's, you know, on some level, I prefer working rock that, you know, it hasn't been slabbed. But the reality is that it's more environmentally friendly. You slab this rock up, you get a lot more pieces out of it. It's somewhat more responsible to work slabs on some level. When it comes to copper, it really comes down to what do you have available to you. Do you have a lot of antler? Well, I really don't. One last thing before I go. You know, I was watching a video, and gosh, it really works. I was drinking a couple of those Mike hard lemonades, and you know the trick with the nail. You know, you get a big heavy nail like this with a fat head on it, you put it down like this into the bottle and you shake it. Well, heck, it works. So I've got a couple of these little pieces here. They're really on the thin side. I was looking at the bottom, I was thinking, hey, this looks like a pretty stout bottle, I should try it. Even with the glass looking fairly thick, it ends up being a very thin piece of material to work. But nevertheless, hey, you know, it's a technique that works really easily. So I just basically popped these out and you know, worked them down just a little bit. But I don't know, part of me wants to keep these the lettering or the numbering in the middle because it proves that you were actually able to make something out of a piece of man-made material. And it's nice because it's available. It's going to be thrown away anyway. Why not make use of that material? Anyway, so that aside, these larger bifaces, they're really very interesting to try to work out. God, it requires a lot of focus. It requires the right type of billet if you want to do it, and the right type of platform. But man, if you look at that flake scar, man, that really went pretty far. At least 3 inches. I mean, if it's 5 inches wide, so you know, pretty amazing stuff. But it's it requires a certain amount of focus, and you have to hit it with just literally, I'm going to snap this thing in half. That's the type of attitude that you have to have, and you have to not care that you're going to ruin it, and that's how you learn, and that's how you basically succeed at some of these larger pieces. Like I said, it's not quite done. It needs a little help, but man, I just love these big flake scars. It's just different. You know, it's not as busy, and there's something to me that seems like it's more organic on some level, having it look like this. And like I said, I wish the light was a little bit better, but I think people can get the basic idea. It is thick. It's still thick. It needs some work. The back end here was, you know, where my thumb is a little thicker. I had a little bit of trouble over here. This is an example of, you know, when you focus too much on a problem, it's hinging and you make it worse. Maybe you should stop and just walk away for a little bit until your mindset's a little bit better. So I kind of messed that up a little bit. I know I can clean it up, but it's like just just let it rest a little bit. And that's what all the old timers say. Put it down, let it rest. And really what you're doing is you're resting. You're trying to get your attitude back to where it needs to be in order to complete the piece properly. But I'm liking this. I'm liking these big bifaces. Like I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I mean, it's, like I said, it's 10.5 inches long, and it's like, well, what do you do? I know a guy who makes these spears, and it's like, here, take it. So that's probably what I'll end up doing. But it's all about the challenge. It's all about the fun of actually trying to succeed at something that you didn't think you could do. And I got to tell you, 6 months ago, no way. There's no way I would have been able to pull this off. But it's just observation and trying to see what the results are. And hey, watch those videos. You know, I rewatch all these guys' videos again just to see, hey, you know, have I improved? Do I understand what they're talking about? And it helps. But you know, if you don't fail, and I've said this before, if you don't try and fail, you just don't learn. And so this is the kind of trouble that you get into. But it just reminds you, hey, reinforce those ridge lines, start on the ends, and be a little bit more diligent about it, and maybe it'll work. And, you know, and it's kind of like, if I could pull off half-inch thick slabs as opposed to 1-inch thick slabs, all that does is give me more pieces to work, you know, from that rock. And it's more responsible. It's a more responsible use of those resources, because when you're gone, hey, you know, the kids, the grandkids, so on and so forth, they have as much right to these materials as we do. So I think it's the way to approach it. Anyway, so that's about it. That's Wertex signing off.